Good morning, good morning. Happy Technique Tuesday with Tracy. Today we are gonna splatter, woohoo! One of my favorite techniques that I'm gonna show you a few new ways even to do it. So welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for liking this video and sharing with your friends. If you're not subscribed to my channel, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate each of you and all of your support. So let's get started. I have here an empty Stampin' Up! Kit box. So this is my favorite thing to use for this technique. So inside, I have just a couple pieces of folded grid paper right inside. So it's just gonna kind of soak up anything that I need. So the first way that we're gonna splatter, and let me show you the different products we're gonna be using today. So if you don't have any of these, you can put them on your wish list or add them to your cart in my online store. I so appreciate each of your business and your support. So the first thing that we will be using is a Stampin' Blends marker. We'll also be using a Stampin' Write marker. So these are probably the things you see me use the most with this technique. So any color of blends and any color of our Stampin' Write marker. So our blends are our alcohol-based ink, and our Stampin' Write markers are just like our ink pads, so they are a water-based ink. We're also going to be using a spritzer, a Stampin' spritzer, so we'll talk about that. We're going to use some ink refill, and we're going to use one of our water painter pens. So that is kind of, oh, and some Wink of Stella. And we're gonna use some Wink of Stella. So that's kind of what we're gonna be using today. And I'm gonna show you all the different fun ways that I love to splatter. So the first way that I love to splatter, and I'm using Melon Mambo ink today. We're just gonna keep it all the same so that you can see how different the splatter looks with each different splatter technique. So the first way is the Stampin' Write marker, and I'm going to use the brush tip end, so that thicker end. Good morning, Ty. We're going to use the lid, and we're going to kind of flick it right off the lid. So we're taking kind of the tip of it and brushing it right off of the lid, and I'm just going to do this all over this piece of basic white just so you can kind of see it. Put the cap back on, and so this creates a really light splatter effect. So you can see just kind of the little speckles of splatter on there. So let me put this one to the side. I'm going to bring in another piece of basic white, and this time we're going to use the same brush end but with our alcohol markers, and we're going to do the same splatter flicking technique with this. So this is also Melon Mambo. This is the light Melon Mambo of the Stampin' Blends. Let me just do this all over. And the closer you get, the bigger the splatter bubbles, the further away you go, the smaller the splatter bubbles. So just on those two, I want to show you, look at the difference that the splatters create just with those two markers. So we've got the Stampin' Write with the real thin splatters and the bigger splatters with the alcohol marker. So that's kind of two quick and easy ways that I love to splatter. So now we're going to show you a couple more. So bring in another piece of basic white. And this is our Stampin' spritzer. So these come in multi-packs, they're empty. And I fill mine with a couple of drops of, so this is my Melon Mambo one, I just put a label on it so I know what color it is. But, you know, a couple, 5 or 6 drops of the Melon Mambo ink refill. And then the other bit of filling it up is what I like to use rubbing alcohol. You can use water as well, but it takes longer to dry. So I like to use rubbing alcohol so that it's a quick dry. So with this technique, we're just gonna take this And I have these in multiple colors, so you can use them with any. You could clean them out and refill them. I just keep a color for each one, then I don't have to do it. It's just ready for me to go for the next time. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of these because I want you to see. So you can spritz it really close and get big spritz splotches, right? That creates a big old splatter. And you can see that because this is a little bit more liquidy, it's going to take a second to dry. Sometimes I stick a block on it just to give it so it stays flat, right? But this is going to be dry here in a second. And so while that one dries, so that was a close-up splatter. We'll bring in another one here. And I'm going to hold it closer to the camera, further away from the paper. And you can see that one will create a little different splatter, right? So it just depending on how close you hold it or how far away you hold it, you get that. Do you see why I use my kit box for my splatter? I call this my splatter box because it catches all of the excess, right? It's not all over my table or my glass mat. You could totally do it on your glass mat as well, but then I have something to clean up. So I just keep one of these, and anytime I want to do a lot of splattering, I will use my splatter box. So that is with our spritzer. So look, just with these four, the different kind of splatters we've created, whether it's the two with the spritzer or the two different markers, we've got each of those splatter techniques, right? Okay, so now I'm going to show you a technique with Wink of Stella. So I've got a finished card here, and it needs some bling. So I've got my Wink of Stella here, and what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to squeeze out into the lid, so it's, you know, kind of loose into the lid, and then I'm going to do that same flicking technique with this, and I'll get it closer so that you can really see. But I'm just doing that same flicking technique to get some, basically some glitter splatter all over it. You can also kind of go like this and tap it, but I think you get a little bit more splatter when you go from the lid. So that is what I like to do with that. So let me get close there and move this so you can see. Hopefully the camera will pick up some of this shimmer, but it is super, super sparkly just by doing that. So that's another splatter, a Wink of Stella splatter, right? So we'll let that dry here a sec. And now I'm going to bring in a piece of basic black because I really want you to be able to see this. And on the white, it didn't show as well on camera. So we've got a piece of basic black here, and I've just got an acrylic block. So just an acrylic block. You could use your glass mat as well, but I like to use the acrylic block so it doesn't go all over. So I'm just taking some ink refill here. This is our craft white ink refill. So we've got that just a little bit onto our block. I've got my water painter here, and I actually have an extra set of water painters that I use with my white, just because it's a different thickness of ink. Now I'm just squeezing. I've put water into my water painter here, and I'm just squeezing some water to kind of thin out. So whatever your ink refill you use, this kind of thins it out. So I'm just kind of mixing it up, adding some water to kind of thin out that ink. And then the same thing, we're just going to take the lid, and this almost creates a paint splatter look. So you can see on the basic black there, how we've got that paint splatter. Totally looks like we just painted the house and splattered all over, right? So we've got that. What a pretty almost sky background, a night sky background that could be, right? So we'll set that there. let me bring in another piece, and with that same technique, if we just scoop up some of this thinned out ink, but we use the cap, now you're gonna get this like fanned out splatter. So even just with that, you can see the two different splatter effects, right? One is a little more polka dotty, and the other one is truly a fanned out splatter. So lots and lots of different techniques with the splatter. And here's another finished card where I used one of the markers to do the splatter on there. So you can just see how the splatter can add a little bit to maybe a plain background. If you just want to give it a little bit more color, a little bit of subtle color, you can do that. So tell me in the comments, which is your favorite way to splatter? The new splatter way with our water painter and an ink refill? Do you love to splatter with the misters, the Stampin' misters, or do you love to splatter with one of our markers? So many ways, such a fun technique, and it adds so much to our cards when maybe these become the background, or maybe we stamp our sentiment on here and then die cut out of it. There are so many options to use with this fun splatter technique. So happy Technique Tuesday, and I'll see you guys soon.